All right, the next question is biblical submission. And I actually get this question a lot. And there's actually a couple more questions that says, what is submitting? How do you submit to your husband without feeling like a maid? Another lady said, how do I submit to my husband without him walking all over me? And it's so sad that in our culture, we believe that submitting to our husband is a way for us to be like his slave or like his maid, when that's not at all the case. God has created a beautiful design for man and women. Man to submit to God, and the wife submit to her husband. And this could also be misconstrued for us women to think, or for the church to tell women sometimes, that they just submit to men in general, when that's also not the case. We're not just supposed to submit to any man. Before we're married, we are to submit to our parents, our father and mother. And when we are married as women, we are to submit to our husbands. Now, what is submitting? Well, let's look at the exact definition. Submission is to voluntarily take a position where you put your trust in someone else and heed their leadership. Submission is not slavery, coercion, manipulation, intimidation, misguidance, or suppression. Submission is a voluntary act that we as wives do with our husbands, where we heed his leadership and follow what he believes that God is leading us towards as a family. Now, let's think about a team, right? There's always a captain that makes the last call. And that's basically what our husband is. He's someone who makes the big decisions for our family. And as women, sometimes I understand it can feel like, well, that means that I can't make any decisions, or that means that I'm the slave. Blah, blah, blah. That's not the case at all. A good man is going to talk to his wife and discuss with his wife what her thoughts are, and go to her with discussion so that they can make a decision together. But at the end of the day, if the husband feels like it's God calling him and the family to go a certain way, then it's the wife's job to voluntarily submit and do what her husband feels is best. And the thing is, when it comes to submission, is it's actually a beautiful thing for us as wives, because we don't have to carry that big burden on our shoulders. If you go to Ephesians 5, you will see that it says for us to submit and respect our husbands, but there's a huge part of Ephesians 5 that's all about what the husband has to do, which is lay his life down for his wife and do all these things for his wife and love the wife and nourish her and treasure her like Christ loves the church, like Christ died for the church. So it is the husband's job to lay his life down, and it is the wife's job to submit and follow after his leadership. So all that to say is that as women, we can take that burden off of our shoulders, because that is what the men carry. The man can carry that burden of being the leader of the family so that we don't have to. Our things are to be homemakers, to be busy in the home, as it says in Titus 2:3-5, and to understand that our husband has our best interest at heart. Let's pause really quick and talk about Birthright. Birthright is an all-natural supplement company that believes that women need to return to better ways for being in tune with their bodies, cycles, and hormones through the wisdom of the past. I found this company a couple weeks ago, actually met the founder, and I was just blown away by these vitamins and prenatals. If you are a woman who has been looking for a good prenatals that doesn't have bad ingredients in it, you definitely want to try this out. I've been using them for the past couple weeks. It's been great so far. And my favorite part is that I know every single ingredient in this prenatal. It is so good. It's all natural, non-GMO, grass-fed and grass-finished, sustainably sourced from regenerative farms. They really care about the ingredients that they put into their prenatals and their everyday vitamins. They have a Revive hormone support, and then they also have a Bloom prenatal, and I take these every day. It's for preconception and pregnancy support. I also love their branding. I mean, look how stunning this bottle is. It's all in an amber glass jar. I mean, they just put so much time and effort into these vitamins. You definitely want to go and give them a try and let me know how it goes. Just use code HOMEMAKER to get 10% off on your first order, and let's get right back into the episode. That's the thing. If you marry a good man, a good man of God who you know is following the Lord and is submitting to the Lord, then we can understand that us submitting to our husband is God's design because he is submitting to God. And that being said, because of that, we are submitting to God because we are submitting to our husbands and we are submitting to what God is saying in scripture. And it is just a beautiful thing. Another wonderful thing about submission, biblical submission, and I have to say biblical submission because there's some weird things out there. Okay, I'm talking about what scripture says in God's perfect design. It allows us to really trust our husbands. Like when it comes to submission, we want to trust our husbands. And if there is times where, let's say there's a situation, and it could even be small things too, like let's say, choosing the restaurant, whatever it may be, let's say there's a decision and your husband makes the wrong decision or wasn't the right one for your family. That also doesn't fall on you as a woman. That's a great thing for me too, that I think, and that sounds kind of bad, but just hear me out. What I'm trying to say is that if your husband makes a decision and it's the wrong decision, I'm not saying that we as wives should nag them or tell them, see, I told you so. You shouldn't have done it your way. You should have done it my way, X, Y, and Z. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm trying to say is that doesn't fall on you. Your husband answers to God for his decisions that he makes for your family. It's our job as wives to love our husbands and trust him even in the times where he might make the wrong decision. There might be big decisions that he makes, and submission really comes into play when you guys don't agree. Because at the end of the day, it's still the husband's job to make the last decision and to be the leader of the family. Now, when it says, how do you submit to your husband without feeling like a maid? I don't feel like a maid at all. I feel good. I feel amazing that I know I have a husband who is looking after my best interest, who knows that he is following God and that he's listening to God and he's following what the scripture says. I don't feel like a maid at all. I feel peace. That's what I feel. I feel like biblical submission is a way for us as women and men to both feel peace and to do what God has called us to do. So I would change your mindset when it comes to submission. And I would start thinking about submission as a way for us as wives, for you as a wife, to feel peace. Because do you really want to always be nagging him and arguing with him over everything? Who cares if he makes the wrong decision about something? At the end of it matters, right? But at the end of the day, that in a way is his fault. He made that decision for your family. And at the end of the day, we don't always have to be nagging and arguing in every single thing when it comes to submission. It's just a beautiful thing. All of that is to say that submission is a way for us to follow God because it says in scripture to submit to our husbands. So we're honoring God by doing that. And I would just pray that you will change your mindset on that. Change your mindset on what submission is. Read scripture and understand that it's actually a way to take that load of leadership off of our backs as women and understand that our husband isn't trying to boss us around and be a dictator. He is doing these things out of our best interests and out of leadership and out of his duty as a man, which is to protect and provide for us and to submit to God. So I really pray that you would feel differently about this and understand that if you married a good man, right? If you married a good man, then his job and his desire isn't to walk all over you. His desire is to do what's best for you and for the family. And sometimes it may be you disagreeing and he's still making a decision that you don't agree with. And in those situations, we should still submit because that's what God has called us to do. Another thing that I will say though, I talked about this a little earlier, but if he does make the wrong decision, it's also our job as wives to not nag him or tell him that he should have followed what we said instead. It's our job as wives to comfort him and to be there for him and to show him that we are still there for him and that we are still in his corner and that we still support him even when he makes a decision and it wasn't the right one. Maybe he thought that he was hearing something from God, but it wasn't actually the right way. So it's our job to still comfort, it's our job to still support our husband and to be his biggest cheerleader. That's kind of what one of the videos we talk about in Young Homemakers Club. We talk about submission in marriage. It's an hour-long interview with Madi as well in Young Homemakers Club exclusively. And we talk all about this, and it's so good. So I hope that that was helpful for you. Let's get on to the next question.